every day we wake up and these problems have changed and morphed a bit. And so that's how fast we're going to have to resynchronize. In most organizations that we've done work with, that's far too fast. It usually ends up in either a 7 or 14-day cadence, which is far faster than the quarterly cycle that a lot of their traditional competitors might still be adhering to. And so then that was the cadence question that we answered. And then there was the who should be involved in it sort of question. And our leaders up here made the great decision to say, well, the who should solve for itself. Let's let that grow organically. And so it started with the obvious who, let's get the next, if we're going to do this with our leadership up here and say, let's get on a conference call every day or get on a video call every day, let's pull in the next, 50 or so key leaders at this level. Now we've got a 70-person daily sync that we're doing. And pretty soon the next layer came knocking, right? And so the next 300 people want to join so that they can be clear on what the leadership is talking about and seeing. And that somewhere in there pretty quickly led to this conversation. Actually, what we would need and love is not for this to be sort of a top-down sync, here's what we're thinking, but a bottom-up session. So we really want to incentivize these folks here at the tactical level to become part of this conversation. And we want them to be the source that sort of drives this sort of daily forum. And so from there, it grew very quickly, right? And by the time that I was, part of the staff that was sort of wrapped into this on a regular basis, we were doing this, every 24 hours, 7 days a week for years on end. And there would be, 6, 7, 8,000 people a day for an hour to an hour and a half dialed into this one single forum right here, right? And again, these weren't conversations that were solving long-term, very specific issues that you could put on a Gantt chart and sort of predict out. These were forums where these teams right here had the floor, and they could say, okay, we've been out in this operating environment for the last 24 hours, and here are the things that we've learned that we think are of most relevance to other members of the organization. So we're going to pass that up through this sort of communication line, and it's going to hit all these different leaders as they get more senior. But what I'm really doing is I'm not just talking to senior leadership up here. I am sharing these insights that we've learned over the last 24 hours and sharing them across the organization, right? Because I have this other sort of part of the enterprise that sits in the backdrop, right? This big bureaucracy. And so when this team here is using that platform to talk up and in, they're also talking across, right? And this team here is starting to understand, I see what they're wrestling with. I can understand how that applies to my problem. Now I know what to look for in my part of the fight that might be relevant to them, et cetera, et cetera. And so these networks start to evolve very organically around that as well. And so it was the regular cadence and the interaction of these two systems, this sort of traditional up, down, and across, I'm going to send the information up the bureaucracy and wait for orders to come back down.